Effort is the bridge between desire and achievement. Imagine preparing for an important exam. A student who only wishes to pass but never studies will likely fail, while one who dedicates time, reviews constantly, and works through challenges, increasing their chances of success. The same principle applies to work and spiritual growth. A person who puts in consistent effort develops skill, discipline, and results. Scripture teaches us that growth, success, and spiritual maturity are not the results of wishful thinking or occasional interest, but of consistent, intentional action. Proverbs 14:23 tells us, all hard work brings a profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty. This verse goes deeper in showing that effort is not optional in a life of growth. It is the engine of it. Effort is what turns faith, vision, and desire into something tangible. Without it, even good intentions remain dormant. God honors movement. When a person applies consistent effort, they step into the process God designed for transformation and progress. Effort does more than produce results. It builds the worker. Through effort, character is formed. Discipline is strength. Patience is developed. And wisdom is gained. Even when success is delayed, effort is never wasted because it is actively shaping our maturity. Each step taken, even the smallest ones, trains the heart and mind to persevere rather than retreat and stay behind. On the other hand, the absence of effort produces decay. What is not worked on begins to weaken. Scripture warns us that neglect leads to loss, not because God withholds blessings, but because progress requires participation. Effort keeps faith alive. Where effort is applied faithfully, stagnation is broken and transformation becomes possible. Galatians 6:7 says, do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. This verse establishes a spiritual law that ties effort directly to an outcome, revealing that life responds to what is intentionally invested. God has built the world in such a way that actions take shape in visible results. Effort is never detached from consequences. It is the seed that determines the future of a harvest. Effort often feels small or unnoticed in the moment, but sowing is progress and cumulative. Each act of discipline, each obedient choice, and each step of faith contributes to a larger outcome that may not be seen immediately. Scripture reminds us that growth happens beneath the surface long before it becomes visible. What looks insignificant today may be laying the foundation for lasting fruit tomorrow. Many people desire the benefits of growth, success, without submitting to the process that produces them. However, Scripture is clear that harvest never precedes planting. Results are not random blessings, but the natural outcome of faithful effort over time. Expecting change without commitment contradicts the order God established. God remains faithful to his principle because it reflects his justice and wisdom. Life consistently mirrors what is sown. Whether good or neglectful, the truth is not meant to discourage but to empower. Effort places the future within reach. When believers sow diligently in righteousness, obedience, and perseverance, they can trust that God will bring the harvest in his perfect time. Proverbs 13:4 says, "A sluggard's appetite is never filled, but the desires of the diligent are fully satisfied." This proverb draws a sharp contrast between desire without effort and discipline backed by action. The sluggard wants the outcome but refuses the process, resulting in emptiness and disappointment. This is what you call a lazy person. Desire alone has no power to produce change. Scripture makes it clear that fulfillment is not granted to wishful thinking, but to those who are willing to labor faithfully. Diligence creates movement, and movement creates momentum. Even when the process feels slow, consistent effort prevents the stoppage of our spiritual lives. Each step taken through diligence builds endurance, sharpens our skills, and moves a person closer to the goal. Growth is rarely instant, but diligence ensures it's continuous. God intentionally links diligence with satisfaction because work done faithfully aligns with his design. Effort brings a deeper sense of fulfillment than shortcuts could. When a person commits to a steady, honest labor, they experience the reward of seeing their work bear fruit. This satisfaction is not just material. It reaches into confidence, character, and spiritual maturity. Without diligence, frustration becomes inevitable. The gap between desire and reality grows wider, breeding discouragement and resentment. Scripture warns that neglect leads to lack, not because opportunity is absent, but because effort is. Results come when diligence is sustained, and those who remain faithful in effort will find themselves richly supplied in due time. 1 Corinthians 3:6 says, "I planted the seed, Apollos watered it, but God has been making it grow." This verse highlights that effort is an essential part of God's ordained process. Just as a farmer must plant and water before expecting harvest, believers are called to participate actively in the work of God that God has entrusted to us. Growth does not happen magically or by a wishful thinking. It requires intentional action. Effort is the human responsibility within God's divine plan, and it demonstrates both faith and obedience. God does not remove the need for work. He expects believers to act, to invest their time and energy and skills, even as they trust Him for the results. Faith does not excuse laziness. it empowers our actions. When believers combine effort with prayer and dependence on God, they honor His design and participate in the unfolding of our purposes. Work is not separate from faith. It is one of the ways faith is expressed in the tangible world. Effort also cultivates faithfulness. While God remains sovereign, our outcomes, it is through diligent action that believers exercise trust and commitment. Each step taken, even in uncertainty, reflects a willingness to align with God's plan. Ultimately, results appear when obedience and trust work together. Faithful effort creates the conditions for God to act, opening the door for His blessing to manifest. Effort does not replace God's power, but it activates it in the natural world. When believers labor faithfully, they partner with God, moving from mere hope to tangible progress. Nehemiah 4:6 says, "So we rebuilt the wall till all of it reached half its height, for the people worked with all their heart." Nehemiah's leadership provided a vivid example of how faith and effort must work hand in hand. The task of rebuilding Jerusalem's walls was daunting. The city lay in ruins, enemies surrounded them, and fear threatened to paralyze the people. Yet Nehemiah inspired them to commit fully to the work before them, showing that no matter how overwhelming a challenge may seem, wholehearted effort is essential to see God's plan fulfilled. Faith alone was not enough. Action was required. Prayer was an important foundation for their labor, but it did not replace the need for a practical effort. The people prayed continuously, seeking God's guidance and protection, but they also worked tirelessly, carrying stones, building walls, standing guard, and planning strategically every day, requiring diligence and perseverance, demonstrating that spiritual preparation and practical effort must coexist for progress to be realized. Ultimately, God honored their commitment. The wall was completed not simply because of faith, nor merely because of human effort, but because of faithful effort and trust in God moved together. The people experienced the fulfillment of seemingly impossible tasks because they were willing to labor with persistence and courage. Nehemiah's story reminds believers that God rewards diligence, perseverance, and wholehearted effort, proving that true results emerge when actions align with faith. Hebrews 11:6 says, "And without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to Him must believe that He exists and that He rewards those who earnestly seek Him." The truth reveals that God honors persistent pursuit, not half-hearted or sporadic attempts. A casual interest in Him produces little fruit, but a consistent, intentional effort demonstrates a seriousness. Spiritual growth, like any meaningful achievement, requires daily investment through prayer, study, and obedience. Effort is the means by which faith is activated, transforming desire into tangible spiritual progress. Effort is also a reflection of what the heart's priorities are. When believers intentionally pursue God every day, their discipline shows that they value Him above convenience and comfort. This daily commitment shapes character, strengthens resolve, and aligns their lives with His purposes. God is not distant from human effort. He welcomes it. Scripture assures believers that diligence in pursuing Him is never wasted. The rewards of faithful effort may not come immediately, but they are always meaningful and lasting. Just as planting a seed does not yield instant harvest, persistent spiritual effort lays the foundation for what God has to bring. Galatians 6:9 says, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." The truth highlights that weariness and delay are often a part of the journey toward breakthrough. Many believers grow discouraged when the results do not appear immediately, forgetting that effort is the bridge between intention and reward. Scripture reminds us that continued diligence, even in the face of exhaustion, positions us to receive the many very things that we hope for. Quitting too soon stops the process prematurely, robbing the believer of the harvest their labor could produce. Let me tell you a story that happened a couple weeks ago. It was a Sunday here at church, and we were outside, and me and a couple brothers, we were playing soccer outside. And it was my team versus another team. And as we were playing, we would begin to lose the game. And I remember my teammates, they began to get discouraged as, oh, we're losing the game. And we weren't losing by a little bit, we were losing by a lot. And at one of the moments during the game, they walked away. They said, oh, I'm gonna go get a piece of bread. And they didn't walk back, they didn't come back. So we continued persistently playing the game. And I remember that day we lost. We lost, and I told them, when they come back again, the following day, or the Wednesday was, I said, we're gonna play them again, and I'm gonna make sure that we win the game. And we ended up winning, because we persevered. Persistence is the safeguard of progress. Every act of effort, no matter how small, accumulates over time, building momentum toward the desired outcome. When effort is abandoned, the potential fruit withers and opportunities are lost. Sustained diligence protects and strengthens the investment of time, energy, and faith, ensuring that the work already done is not wasted. Effort is like planting the seeds. God's timing is perfect, but it often requires believers to remain faithful through the waiting period. Results do not always come on our own timings, and delays are not denials. God works behind the scenes on His timing, orchestrating the circumstances, preparing our hearts, and shaping the outcomes. Those who endure faithfully witness the fulfillment of what their diligence has sown. Breakthrough is rarely instant, but it is inevitable when the effort continues to align with God's will. James 5:7 says, "Be patient then, brothers and sisters, until the Lord's coming. See how the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crop, patiently waiting for the autumn and spring rains." This principle illustrates that successfully rarely begins at the moment of visible results. Like the farmer who prepared the soil, planted the seeds, and tends to the field long before the first harvest appears. Believers must commit to a diligent work well in advance before any rewards are given. Waiting is not a signal to stop working. It is called to continue faithfully. Persistence is the sustained application of effort over time. Even when results seem distant or slow, the farmer does not abandon the field after planting. Instead, he waters, weeds, and nurtures until the crops is ready. Similarly, believers are called to maintain their effort through trials, delays, and uncertainty, trusting that every action contributes to the eventual harvest. God honors endurance and perseverance. Those who remain faithful in their efforts, even when the progress is slow, even when it's not shown. God tells us to be patient and persevere. So I end with this. God honors persistence. He rewards endurance and works through faithful labor to accomplish his purposes. Just as seeds require planting, watering, and care, the believer's spiritual and practical growth unfolds through sustained effort by committing fully to the works God has placed before us. So as we take this time to bow our heads,